Hey, what's up? It's Kit time for another video. Today we talk about ultralight reels. And this is part of the series on ultralight fishing, which you could find in the channel. So if you like this sort of thing, um, look for the playlist. Go to the channel, look for the playlist, and then this is just one part of it. In fact, the second video or third video that I'm putting out there was an introduction. Then there's the rods. We'll talk about the lines, the knots, leaders, and all that. So, second installment. Here we go. Now, it's this topic is actually quite, I would say, technical. Okay, and if you actually know what you're doing, this is one of the toughest decisions that you're gonna have to make buying a reel. So when you first start out, your requirements are all very broad, and then somewhere in the middle you'll figure out that okay, I need something, but you don't know what you need until when you finally figure things out. You'll find that there's only a handful of reels that would actually fit your requirements. Okay, so there are some people that are in the middle of the journey, some are starting out, and then there are some that are actually happily doing everything because they've figured everything out. You could easily go through a lot of rods just to find the right one for you, and just as easily you could go through a lot of reels just to find which one is right for your fishing and your requirements. And ultralight is one of those things that's kind of affordable, but not. You know what I mean? So like, take for example, buying one of these reels is not gonna be cheap. Okay, and this is like not even the best. Okay, now if you look at the reels, like something like this, okay, way cheaper than that, but that's where the confusion lies, because there's this as well, and essentially they're the same reels. In fact, they were so similar that they had to rename this. All right, so budget is a very big consideration when we're looking at reels. A lot of people probably think that okay, this is cheap and all that, it's fine, let's just get that, and then they'll buy like a Sedona or something similar. Okay, see, here's the thing. A lot of people would buy reels and they'll be totally happy with that reel and not graduate to other things. Okay, there are some people that also discover that all of these reels have limitations, and that especially with, I mean, it's super fast to know when you actually hook something decent that you can't stop, and that's when you start questioning your reel. At least for the smart guys. For the ones that don't question it and they just attribute it to luck and all this, then the journey ends there. But for those guys that actually hook something decent and you just go like, what the hell was that? And then fish gets away, and then you go, okay, I have to find what went wrong. Okay, now and that's when the headache kind of starts. Okay, so my purpose for this video is to actually steer you towards reels that would actually be what I would say decent. Okay, and when I say decent, it means that when you hook something unexpected, it still gives you a fighting chance. And then from there, it kind of becomes very specific to need. All right, and then we'll talk about the advantage and the disadvantages of those things. All right, so budget is a key factor for a lot of people. However, I honestly believe that I know it's kind of hard, especially for people that don't have an idea of exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But set the budget aside first. And one of the things that you need to look at when buying a reel is, what are you gonna catch? Because a lot of people don't really understand that when you buy something, you have to base it on what you're supposed to be catching. Now, the easiest way to go about this is to literally just go around. Okay, if you have friends that are doing this, observe. I'm not gonna say ask them, because their experience will be totally different from what you're experiencing. Okay, it could be that you guys are going to start out on the same plane initially. However, this sort of fishing kind of branches out really fast. Okay, um, only because this type of fishing is very applicable to a lot of places, if not all. Okay, except when you're out in the middle of the ocean where there's hardly any small fish to catch with these things. But literally any stream, any river, any beach, pond, ditch, sometimes very applicable. Okay, and surprisingly, if you get things right, you could actually catch very decent fish. Now, the thing that complicates this, obviously, is that um, it's it could get very specialized. So, to narrow things down and to make things less complicated, there's a few things that I do. Okay, one of the things is really to look at what you're going to catch. Now, you can ask your friends. You can go around. Right now, it's kind of easy these days because there's a lot of groups and forums wherever you're at. Maybe, just look at the pictures and see exactly what they're catching. Okay, there's always going to be a dominant species. Like, take for example, it could be some sort of snapper. It could be some sort of terrapon, or target fish. It could be some sort of mackerel or scad, stuff like that. And you'll see that, okay, that's the dominant species. It's this big. That will actually dictate the size of the reel that you're looking at. So that's point number 2, the size. Okay. Now, when it comes to size, there's 3: 500, 1000, and 2000. 2500 is already kind of high for ultralight fishing. I know that in the States it's still, they're using 2500 and stuff, but a size 2000 reel like this and this, okay, is something that's going to be on the bigger side. And guess what? This actually kind of dictates distance as well, because a bigger spool will give you a bigger coil, therefore it will give you farther casts. What this has also is capacity. So obviously a 2000 size spool will hold more line than a 1000 size spool. As you can see, there's the size difference there. I know this is a Daiwa, this is a Shimano. That's, when you're choosing this, actually look at the sizing, not the brands. Okay, we'll talk about the brands later on. And this is an Abu Garcia, which is like similar. Okay, so compare that to the size of the 1000. Okay, now there are some reels that have 2000 labeled on them, but they're kind of big. Okay, so like or kind of small. So like, here's a very good example. This is a Shimano Soiree, and it's more like a 1000 size reel than it is a 2000. All right, so size is something that you actually need to look at because it holds your line. Okay, so longer lengths of line, okay, would be very beneficial for fishing for fish that run. Okay, now remember that this sort of fishing isn't for the small fish not necessarily. Okay, it's not necessarily for smaller fish. In fact, I've caught some really decent fish on small equipment. So, when we're fishing, it might be that we're targeting smaller fish in one session, and then later on in the next session, we'll be targeting fish of up to like 6 kilos. If like, take for example, Dorado, queenfish and stuff like that. Like these reels. In fact, I caught like a very good queen on this particular reel right here. uh it was fun actually, queenfish, big queenfish on light rods, because queenfish jump and they run. All right, so um one of the uses that I have for this is actually sight casting, like I do when I fly fish on the flats. Okay, so 3 kilo, 2.5 kilo fish, so 5 to 6 pound fish on these, no problem, you know. So size matters, so you have to decide. um Bigger spools give you longer casts and more capacity. Just think about that. So also one of the reasons why I don't have a 500, because a 500 size for me severely limits my casting range. Obviously, as far as the capacity is concerned, you can always do a few things. Like, take for example, um, I have 200 meters of line on this, and it was underspooled, so I just put backing at the back, also thin braid, so I get a full spool. Just in case I hook something big on this, I can actually fight it. Now, generally for ultralight, if you get a run that's over 100 meters, it's history. Bye bye. You know. But there are times, of course, when you have a fighting chance, and that's kind of that's the technical aspect of it, because when you are already fighting fish like at a very long distance, your immediate instinct is to actually tighten the drag. With in fact, you actually loosen it. Okay, so uh, it could be that you're thinking that, oh, the spool is loose and everything, but because of the leader that you have, the length, that's a lot of resistance in the water. So if you tighten your drag, the resistance of the reel, because when you tighten your drag and the line is, let's say there's less line on your spool, the drag becomes quite tight. So the more line you have out, the more it will have like a stronger drag. So you loosen up so that your drag tension actually equalizes or normalizes. So again, when you're fighting and then they're quite far, you actually have to loosen, but you have to keep track. So that's, again, that's kind of like the advanced stuff. Size, capacity, always a thing that you have to bear in mind. And weight. Okay, so those are the most obvious. Now, this is a heavy reel compared to this. Believe it or not, this is a size 1000. This is a size 2000, but this reel is lighter than this. Weight is very important because it actually affects the balance, the feel balance of your overall outfit. So something like this on a shorter rod might feel a little bit back heavy. So a lighter version of the same reel, as you can see, this is actually the Stradic 1000 CI4, and this is the regular Stradic. I think this is the FK or something. So same reel, same size, different materials used on the body, and this actually balances out really well with shorter rods, whereas this one would be it balances well with longer rods. The feel is very important. The weight, the physical weight of an object or reel, rod, actually affects the sensitivity. And guess what? When you're fishing really light lures, especially when you're fishing them at a very good distance, what happens is that the weight becomes a factor, and the sensitivity becomes a factor, because some of these fish, especially when you're fishing in shallow water areas, guess what? In shallow water scenarios, or even in places where there's a lot of pressure, the fish actually take the lures not as aggressively as they normally do. Okay, or there are some tide phases wherein they force the fish to actually be very gentle when they pick up the lures. Okay, and what happens when that happens is that uh I mean, two scenarios. It could be that they pick up, they sense that there's something wrong with it, they spit it out, and uh they suck it. You don't feel anything, and it actually hooks them in the gullet. Now, detrimental for those fish that you don't intend to keep. So, you're forced to keep something. Like, take for example, queenfish, right? And believe it or not, there are times when queenfish actually just inhale the lure, and you wouldn't know this because, let's say, your whole combo is kind of heavy, so it's not as sensitive, and then boom, it inhaled. Now obviously it's gonna run, you're gonna set the hook and fight the fish and all that, but then you find out that it's got hooked, and what are you gonna do? Queenfish are not good to eat, and most of the time when we catch queens, we release them no matter how big they are. Especially in the summer, there's a lot of queens, but also they die really fast, and when they're in the upper column of the water, there's very little oxygen. So even if you try to revive them on top, they'll die. So the best way is to actually hook them, fight them. As soon as they get to the boat, you take the hook off and then release them without even touching the fish. So in these instances, sensitivity matters so much, because as soon as you feel a slight tick, you set the hook and then it's always outside. And yeah, quite important point for us when majority of the time we're releasing fish like that. Okay, weight is a very big thing. Now another thing, I think this is one of the technical aspects that I want to mention: inertia. Okay, so startup inertia, actually. So when you're reeling in, okay, you're putting effort on the handle and then the rotor spins. Okay, now how this is something that a lot of people don't even realize is something that you should be actually looking at. Okay, so like, take for example, for this particular one, see, it is not turning easy, whereas this one would be turning easier. See? Okay, so there's a difference from one reel to another when it comes to that. And then it's easy fix. If you don't have a reel that's kind of like that, what happens is you just buy bearings for it, and there's bearings that you actually you could see the difference. Okay, and mind you, this is a cheap reel. So and I'll tell you why. Okay, so there you can see that this is not bad, and then you move on to this and you'll find that this just a little touch and then it just turns on its own. Obviously it's as good as it gets when it comes to that sort of thing. Now when you're fishing really tiny jigs, you want to have that kind of response so that as soon as you reel in, it starts to move, because after you cast, you close the bail. Oh yeah, always, by the way, don't turn the handle. Okay, when you cast, boom. Okay, so what happens is that after your cast and you reel in, if there's like that bit of delay, your jig as it falls actually it could be that the tail isn't moving yet. Okay, but as soon as you reel in, then that's when it starts to actually swim. And there are a lot of fish that are opportunistic, that it's like I said, it's kind of technical. So when you cast out and then it falls, they're actually looking at it, and I've seen this happen so many times. Okay, as soon as it lands, the fish are actually looking at it, and we're fishing in water that's very shallow, right? And all of this actually happens less than 5 meters away from you. So while I was walking around, I saw this fish casted out, and then boom. As soon as it hits the bottom, I turn, and then it moves, and then the fish grab it. Now, there are some instances where when you reel, it actually kind of sticks and it's not moving, and guess what? It spooks the fish. So the ease of you actually turning the inertia, okay, the force that's needed to turn that, your startup inertia, and this is something that's very common on fly reels. Okay, so with the drag of the fly reels, it actually becomes like really smooth. And that's another thing that we need to talk about, the drag. um Not all reels, especially the cheap ones, will have smooth drags. Okay, so all of these reels actually have carbon drags. Some will have cork, uh, some would have felt. That's really bad, so change the drag washers when you buy the reels. You could just upgrade them. All right, so there's already washers that are sold. You go to AliExpress or whatnot, and they'll have like you take a caliper and then measure your washers, however many, and then just change them. If you have felt washers, like take for example, for some cheaper reels, they'll have felt washers, and that's probably the worst type of washers. uh just change them into better washers. Okay, so startup inertia, okay, kind of like a super, kind of on the technical side, but look for a reel that's just easy to turn. So sometimes they're very decent already, but if you change the bearings on them, they'll become even better. The material of the rotor matters a lot. Okay, so like this one has like a composite rotor. The others will have I'm not too sure if this is I think all of these have composite rotors, but there are some that actually have heavy rotors. Okay, so like this one actually has a heavier rotor than this. Okay, so this is part of the Magnum Light series of reels. So what happens is that the rotor on this is lighter, that's why it's easier to turn. This one is core protect, so it's heavier. You take the one with the lighter rotor. So in this instance, you are looking at Vanquish um, Xsense. This from the Stratic CI4, they now name it as Vanford. So in this segment, pretty good. All right, so if you want a Vanford, go ahead. I know that for the bigger stuff, I actually said don't buy the Vanford. So this one, for smaller stuff like this, Vanford is actually pretty good. Okay, so this is cheap. Okay, and it's easily one of my favorites. In fact, these two are the ones that I use a lot of. Okay, for my purpose. Another thing that you should look at, which is kind of in the technical side. Okay, so far we've spoken about the startup inertia of the rotors. Okay, one of the things that you need to look at. This is a bit on the technical side. Now, if you already have a reel that has a light rotor such as this one, if you want it to actually become even easier to reel, change the bearings. There's actually a few videos online where you can find that people are changing the bearings and which bearings to change. Okay, while you're at it, also change the handle bearings. If there's bushings, just change them to bearings, and it's a very big difference when you reel it. So like take for example a Stella like this, it's fully upgraded, and when you reel it, you'll find that this actually contributes to how smooth or how easy it is to turn. Okay, so upgrading the inside bearings of your handles help. Another thing is, I don't know if you've noticed, but this particular one has a longer handle, and this is already an upgrade. So I have like a bigger reel. I took the handle, it's a Daiwa, Actually, the newer model of this. So I took the handle off of that and put it here, and then it's longer. Makes it easier to crank rather than actually having a shorter handle. Okay, so a longer handle would actually do well. So this handle is from a 2000 size, 3000 size reel, and this is a 2000 size reel. So there's a huge um, okay, here, see, you can see that this one has a shorter handle compared to this, and this is all like 2000. Okay, so you could see there. Another thing that you could do, which is actually cheap. Okay, so very easier, because guess what, when it's longer, it's actually easier to turn. The last that I want to one of the technical aspects, and the last that I want to discuss, it's certainly not the least thing to consider, is the gear ratio of the reel. And this is something that a lot of people are actually kind of um, don't really notice, but this is a very, very important part of this whole puzzle. And for me, um, I have found that the power gear or slow speed reels actually work the best for ultralight. When it comes to like overall, let's say you're fishing with smaller lures, spoons, soft plastics, and all that. There are certain types of fishing. Like take for example, there are certain lures like small jerk baits, jigs. If you're using jigs and certain soft plastics that need a faster reel, only because it kind of needs the velocity to actually get the tail moving or get the desired action. But for most of the use that you find, like take for example, even a lot of types of soft plastics, crankbaits, smaller crankbaits, and even spoons, especially the wider spoons, you'll find that the power gear actually works a lot. Now it's kind of depends on what kind of fish you're after, what species, or even the environment you're fishing on. But I find that for me, power gear works really well. Of all the reels that I have here, I think there's only like two that are power gear. It's this one and my Stella, and that's it, because I couldn't find lower speed versions of the others. Now the attempt, of course, to slow everything down with this one, as you could see, I installed like a longer handle. See, a shorter handle will make you form smaller circles, and it makes the retrieve faster. Whereas with a longer handle, it takes a bigger circle to go around, and that again gives it a what do you call this? A slower retrieve. But here's the thing: I cannot put like a super overly long handle because it alters the balance. So something like this, that's kind of like in the middle, actually works really well. Um, so with those factors, put everything together, you'd be able to sort of formulate which ones you will need. Now I honestly believe that each of these factors play. Okay, so your drag, the spool diameter, the size of the reel, the weight, handle length, you have your what do you call this, gear ratio, and the capacity, of course, play into the the decision to which one you're going to go with. Now size 1000 is actually pretty good for starters. However, if you feel as if it's kind of limiting you, a 2000 size reel will give you more range, more capacity. And in terms of, let's say, if you're choosing something that you would use for a lot of types of fishing, and fishing in different environments, the 2000 would give you a slight advantage. The advantage of the 1000 is the reduced weight. That's it. All others, it's kind of the same. Um, so you're looking at something like this. Now the this is a Revo MGX, and I bought this in Japan. So this project actually started in Japan. This is kind of like the at one point this was the top end of Abu Garcia, Japan, and it carried over to the States. Okay, so I think down the line, what's going to happen with this particular reel is that I'm going to change the bearings to make it perform better. So I'm still kind of trying to figure things out for this, because upgrading this to be able to perform uh, in the same level as, let's say, something like this. Okay, uh, as far as smoothness and ease is concerned, actually not that expensive. The only thing that I really don't like about this is that it tends to actually be kind of stiff to reel, but all others it actually pretty good. In fact, I've caught some big fish on this, and as I mentioned, I've caught like a really good queen with this, and I like using it. It's also pretty light for its size. Now compare it with something like this. This is actually quite light. As you can see, there's a lot of carbon fiber parts on this reel. So that's like the top end. At one point was the top end of the Abu Garcia JDM line as far as spinning reels are concerned. So, you know, um, the best way is to go to the shop for this, okay? Especially with the reels. The rods, you can select your rod together with this and see what balances out. So, my advice is to get a something like a Stradic, okay? But look for a PG. I'm not too sure if they already have a power gear for the Stradic. Vamford is a very good choice. Obviously, just have to look for the PG. Daiwa has a lot of interesting choices. The newer Chaldea, actually. Okay, so the big brother of this is a very, very good reel. They done away with the steel body. Now it's all composite, but the composite, look, this is how good it is. I have one. Okay, hold on. Let me get it. This is a 2500 size. So this is kind of big, but they have a smaller version of this, okay? So this is a 2500 size, and it is a low speed reel. So look for the Chaldea. This is a 2022 or 23 model, but you could still find this in like Amazon or something. So get the 2000, or if there is a 1000 PG of this, really good reel. In fact, this is like a jigging reel for me. I use this for light jigging or ultralight jigging, and it stands out for the punishment and all this. I've already upgraded the drag on this. I also upgraded the bearing inside here. So there's a few things that you could use, but see, here's the thing. In a pinch, I could actually just take this off, put the handle back on here, and I could use it as a as an ultralight reel, because guess what, as you can see there, it's actually the same size. The spool is what's different, so this holds more line, but that's it. Okay, but they share the same body. If you can get the smaller one, like the 2000 or the 1000 version, it's even better, and these guys are not that expensive. Okay, now if I find the link, I'm gonna link some in this video, like the, what do you call this, recommended reels in the description. All right, but hopefully, it doesn't have to be these reels, guys. Like, look for the specs, and then with your budget, that's it. But for me, if I'm actually asked what reel should I go with, that's kind of not going to break the bank, so it will be the Chaldea for the Daiwa, and then Stradics for Shimano. That's it. Or Vamford, actually, because I keep on saying like Stradic CI4, but it's now called the Vamford. But you go for the Vamford. It'll be a very good reel, very light, and just get the PG version. All right, so that's it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. thank you to the members. Of course, being a member supports this channel directly, supports me, so that I can create videos like these, more of these for you guys. All right. Another way to support the channel is, of course, to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Okay, so it's not just the members that are helping out. Of course, if you do all these and liking, if you subscribe, if you haven't yet, and then spreading the word out by sharing videos and sharing the channel, it helps out a lot as well. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.